Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I have a very special guest, Sarika. We have known each other for a long time. We went to college together, same major. We overlapped at JP Morgan. We were in social enterprise group at Cornell, aka SEGSI. She has a lot of insight and wisdom into the banking world. She's been doing investment banking for 2 years at a boutique. So we thought it would be super helpful to create a video for you guys explaining the differences between bulge bracket and boutique investment banking. So I'll let her also introduce herself really quick and we'll get started.
Hey guys, Sarika out here. I work at a boutique bank, as Pradeepa said. It's called Whipstitch Capital, and it's focused on the better for you consumer. And I'm out here based in Boston and excited to share a little bit about what I do.
And I think we'll be covering a lot of important ground, especially regarding deals, hours, comp, recruiting, exit opportunities. So hopefully it'll be super informative for anyone that's kind of deciding between bulge bracket and boutique and what they want to do and how they think it'll help their future goals. Let's get started on hours. So I'll go first. I think for bulge bracket, it's pretty standard but it is actually dependent on whether you go into a coverage versus product role. If we were speaking to my hours at my time in a bulge bracket firm, I would basically work from 8:30 to around midnight to 2 a.m. on weekdays. Most weekends I would work unless I was protected. So once a month I would get a protected weekend and people would be pretty respectful of that. But definitely you could expect a work week of like 80 to 100 hours.
So I work 9 to 6 and then I eat dinner and then usually do some more work and then go to bed around 11, 12, 10. It depends on where you are at a deal. And then on weekends, it's not always, I'm not working on weekends mostly, but sometimes there's some work to do based on where you are at a deal again. So I might have to work a weekend or two, but yeah. Less than what Pradeepa does, for sure.
Did,
yeah.
And I guess also it is dependent on the boutique, right? Like we should.
Yes, of course, yeah. It's definitely dependent on the boutique, though. I'm not. I think my boutique's a little bit different. We have this like very huge emphasis on work-life balance, and that's kind of like the culture and what the MDs have created. But I know a lot of other boutiques, they work the same hours that Pradeepa did at JP Morgan. So full disclaimer.
And I guess we can go right into compensation next. If we're talking base salary, I'm sure everyone knows the standard used to be 85,000 for a first year, but most banks have increased that to 100,000 for first year, 105 for second year, 110 for third year, and then bonus can pretty much range. It's very dependent on individual performance, and of course, like the bank itself, but it could be anywhere from 20,000 to 90,000, even higher sometimes. So it's definitely a range.
So for boutiques, a little bit different. The base is probably going to be much lower. And that's because there's a little bit more risk involved. Since it's a smaller bank, all the revenue that the bank generates is dependent on the deals that we close. Not just the deals that we win, but the deals that we close. And banking, obviously, like we never know what's going to happen. Usually like 50-50 in terms of closing a deal. So the base is lower, and then the bonus is dependent on the deals that we close. And it's usually, for me, it's like 50-50, like salary and then bonus.
Let's talk about recruiting. Actually, I think it would be a good idea for Sarika to speak on both of these for bulge bracket and boutique because she has done both processes.
Okay, so JP Morgan, there's a whole standardized formal recruiting process that they've obviously gone through a million times before me. There was a whole pre-recruitment process where it was meeting everyone at this at Cornell, this target school, right? And then there was a whole program of going into New York City and doing these 3 interviews and these like networking events. And then once we got the offer, there was a whole after like team recruiting process where we talked to all these teams, get placement based on that. And then once you go in, there's a whole 1 week of training before your internship or like 2 months or whatever when it's a full-time role. But very clear that there is a huge analyst class and that you kind of work together through this like formal training process taught by professionals. And this was very different than what I experienced at Whipstitch, at my boutique, where I was hired. The hiring is usually based on need. It's a need-based hiring process. So in like the middle of October, November, I saw LinkedIn posting and I was like, I need a job, apply. And then I got a call. I walked in. I walked through. I had a couple interviews and I got the job. And after that, there was no formal training recruit process. Rather, it was if I had a question or if I was learning something, a VP or associate or analyst would just either I Slack them or they Slack me. And then we set up a 15-minute, 20-minute, 1 hour phone call, whatever. And I learned on the spot. So definitely very different than a Bulge.
I guess we can talk about industry knowledge next. I would say you definitely learn a lot in banking, regardless of which banking position or company you go to. In a bulge bracket, I would say the industry knowledge is very high. The product team or coverage group you go into is usually even more divided into a specific category. So I was covering diversified industries, which I guess is that example because that's a mishmash of everything. But most people are placed even within ECM or DCM into tech, healthcare, etc. So you do get to work a lot with the same type of companies and get to know the comps really well.
So in terms of industry-specific knowledge, if you think about how a boutique bank gets business, it's very different than how a bulge bracket does it. So if you think about it from a company perspective, if you want to sell, then it makes sense to go to the most reputable place. And what comes to mind is JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. So how does a boutique bank compare against something like a JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs? They are industry experts. So they're very, very specific, more narrow and deeper in whatever industry there is. So for example, there's like fintech, there's like healthcare device boutiques, and mine specifically is healthy living, better for you, healthy living consumer brand. So very niche than what JP Morgan has, which is just consumer category, right? So your knowledge is very much all rounded only in that specific industry. So I don't know anything about other consumer products. I don't know anything about retail. I don't know anything about shoes, sneakers. I only know this better for you, healthy living product industry. But it's a lot of knowledge, obviously, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah.
And I would say that that's still like a lot of it would be transferable in terms of actual finance related skills. And now my definition of industry specific seems too broad in comparison to what you were saying, because even like consumer, I'm sure it's a lot broader than just like you said, like healthy living, etc. There's probably a lot more categories involved. But your skills of probably modeling, etc., is going to be transferred no matter which industry you choose to go to next.
Exactly.
Okay, so on to the next, which is actual deal flow. I would say with bulge brackets, deals definitely are always coming in. There is something called a bake-off where several banks kind of pitch against each other to kind of win over the business. So this is usually like an 80-page deck that analysts spend like 2 weeks putting together. But in some sense, most of these banks end up, like especially one of the top banks, bulge brackets, usually end up winning the business. So it's in some ways a formality. They're mainly competing for that lead left position and trying not to be a junior active or passive book runner. But there's always deals coming in.
So similar to bulge brackets, referrals are a huge thing. So your reputation and how people stand up for you and like recommend you is very big here. But a little bit differently, pitches are of utmost importance for if you're a boutique, but because that's where you kind of show your best foot forward and show your capability. So our pitches not only talk about what our capabilities are, but we actually do a little bit of sim building itself in the pitch, and we kind of showcase how would we market this company if we were to be hired. And the reason we do that is because we don't have the kind of roster, the whole huge transaction roster that JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs has.
Okay, so the last thing we're discussing is exit opportunities. And I would say bulge brackets are notoriously known for having great exit opportunities. Notorious is probably the bad word. They are well known to have great exit opportunities, whether it's private equity, venture capital, corporate development, anything you basically want to go into that's finance related. Investment banking is a great segue to get into these industries, which is why most people start their careers off as banking analysts here. So let's see the other side of it.
So definitely bulge brackets have that brand name to them. So recruiters from hedge funds, from VC funds, whatever it is, PE funds, they know that an analyst from JP Morgan will definitely know XYZ. So they don't have to worry about training them, anything like that. On the other hand, boutiques, they don't have that. They don't have that because, if, for example, like a hire wouldn't know someone from Whipstitch Capital has learned this because they've never seen anyone from Whipstitch Capital before. So I would say it's a little bit harder to get those interviews, to get those positions, but it's definitely possible because the actual skills that you have are very transferable and the same as what you would get at a bulge bracket. But yeah, but I guess a little bit like another dive is, for example, if you're going into a consumer PE fund, right? Then you're always in discussion with these PE funds when you're an analyst at Whipstitch and they know of your bank. So it's much more easier if you're going within the same industry to a PE or VC fund versus going from consumer to tech. Then you wouldn't really know anyone there and they wouldn't know you. So it's a little bit different.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So hopefully people are, have more clarity on the differences between bulge brackets and boutiques. And this video was helpful for anyone that is kind of deciding between the two. And stay tuned for more videos. And please make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys soon. Bye.
Peace. Yeah.